Lately, Mason has begun to notice changes in his wife Kylie's behavior. She began to linger at work, justifying herself with urgent projects. One evening, when she came home late again, he tried to talk to her. "Kylie, you've been working late a lot lately. Is everything okay?" "What is it?" he asked, trying to hide his anxiety. "Yes, it's okay, Mason. We have a lot of projects right now, and I have to do everything," Kylie replied, avoiding his gaze. Mason wanted to believe her, but something in her tone and demeanor made him uneasy. He noticed that she had started using a new perfume that he was not familiar with, and often talked about her new colleague, Reed, with unusual vividness. One evening, Mason decided to surprise her. He bought her favorite Thai dinner and a bouquet of her favorite lilies. He wanted to remind Kylie of how happy they were together. When he entered her office building, his heart was beating with excitement. He walked through the familiar corridors, enjoying the silence of the empty office. But when he reached her office, the door was ajar and the room was empty. Mason stopped and looked around. In the distance, he noticed a janitor who had been working here for many years. "Excuse me, have you seen Kylie?" Mason asked, trying to keep his voice calm. The janitor looked at him sympathetically. "She left some time ago with her young boss. I think his name is Reed. They looked in a hurry." Those words struck Mason like lightning. He thanked the janitor and walked slowly to the car, feeling heavy in his hands from flowers and food. He got into the car, and his mind was filled with a jumble of thoughts. Kylie came home late that night. Her face was joyful and radiant, as if she had experienced something amazing. "How was your day?" Mason asked, trying not to sound alarmed. "Great. We had a successful meeting with the client," Kylie replied, her words flowing easily, but her eyes avoided his gaze. Mason watched her in silence, trying to find at least some signs of truth in her words. She looked like she was hiding something. The little details, the smile for no reason, the nervous laugh, all aroused suspicions in him that he could not ignore. It's been a few weeks. Mason noticed more and more how Kylie had changed. She began to hide her phone, not leaving it in a prominent place, as before. Her behavior became cautious and detached. One night, when Kylie was already asleep, Mason decided. His heart was pounding in his chest, but he knew he had to find out the truth. He went to her bedside table and carefully picked up the phone. His fingers trembled as he tried to guess the password. At first, several attempts were unsuccessful. But then, using their anniversary, he guessed right. The screen unlocked and messages opened in front of him. Mason began to read the correspondence. Its contents shocked him to the core. The messages between Kylie and Reed were full of flirting and intimate jokes. They discussed meetings and plans that Mason didn't even know about. With each line he read, his heart ached. The next morning, when Kylie woke up, Mason was already sitting in the kitchen, clutching the phone tightly in his hand. He was ready to talk. "Kylie, we need to talk," he began, his voice shaking. Kylie, still sleepy, looked at him in surprise. "What's wrong, Mason?" "I know about you and Reed," his words sounded like a shot. Kylie turned pale, her eyes wide with fear. "What are you talking about?" Mason held up her phone, showing her messages. "I have read your correspondence. All your plans, all your meetings." Kylie tried to say something, but the words stuck in her throat. She turned away, her shoulders shaking with suppressed tears. "Yes, I've met him," she finally said, her voice barely audible. "But it's over, I swear." Mason stared at her in silence, his heart tearing apart. He wanted to believe her, but every word, every detail said otherwise. "How could you, Kylie? We were happy." His voice was full of pain. Kylie looked at him, her eyes full of tears. "I do not know, Mason. I'm confused. But I never meant to hurt you." Mason turned away, his hands clenched into fists. There was pain and betrayal in his heart that was impossible to forget. It's been a few weeks. There was tension in Mason and Kylie's house. Kylie tried to act normal, but Mason could see through her pretense. His heart was full of pain and anger. He began to think about how to avenge the betrayal. One evening, when Kylie said she would be working late again, Mason decided to follow her. He noticed how quickly she left the house, trying not to look into his eyes. Mason waited until she left the house and followed her. He rode at a safe distance, trying to remain unnoticed. She arrived at a hotel on the outskirts of the city. Mason stopped in the parking lot and watched from the car. He saw Kylie meet Reed in the lobby. They hugged and walked towards the elevator, laughing and holding hands. These scenes ignited a new fire of rage in Mason. He knew he had to act. When he returned home, he began to develop a plan. Mason was sitting at his computer, his face focused. He started transferring money from their joint accounts to a separate account in Kylie's name. He did it carefully, leaving digital footprints that pointed to her. "Kylie, I forgot we have another bill," he said one day at dinner, trying to look casual. She looked up, her eyes wary. "Really? Why didn't you talk about this before?" "I forgot about him myself," Mason replied, trying not to betray his true intentions. "I transferred some money there so that it wouldn't lie idle." Kylie nodded without asking any more questions. She returned to her dinner, but Mason noticed that she was slightly tense. In the following days, he continued to transfer money, carefully watching every step. He also collected all the evidence of correspondence and meetings between Kylie and Reed. His plan began to take shape. One evening, Mason called his friend Josh, who works for the police. "Josh, I need your help," he said, trying to hide the excitement in his voice. "Of course, Mason. What happened?" Josh replied, his voice full of concern. "I have evidence of the theft of money from our accounts. I want you to help me figure this out," Mason explained. Josh agreed to help, and they agreed to meet the next day. Mason was determined to see his plan through. The next morning, Mason prepared all the documents and evidence. He met Josh at a cafe on the outskirts of town. They discussed the details and agreed on the time of the arrest. Mason returned home, his heart heavy, but full of determination. He knew that Kylie and Reed would not be able to escape punishment for their betrayal. The evening was quiet and cold. Mason was sitting in the living room, nervously tapping his fingers on the arm of the chair. He knew that his plan was going to work today. Kylie returned home, her face calm, but Mason could feel the tension in the air. "How was your day?" "What is it?" she asked, taking off her coat. "I'm fine," Mason replied, trying not to show his excitement. "And yours?" "It's good too." "There's a lot to do at work," Kylie said, avoiding his gaze. Mason knew it was a lie. He saw her looking at the phone out of the corner of her eye, waiting for a message from Reed. He got up and went to the window, pretending to admire the view. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Mason whirled around. Kylie looked at him in surprise. "Are you waiting for someone?" "What is it?" she asked. "No," Mason replied, and went to open the door. The police were standing on the doorstep, and Josh was with them. Their faces were serious. "Mason, we're ready," Josh said, nodding at him. Kylie walked to the door, her face pale. "What's going on?" Her voice was trembling. "Kylie, you're under arrest for stealing money from an account," one of the policemen said, handing her handcuffs. Kylie looked at Mason with horror and disbelief. "Mason, what is this? What have you done?" "I found the evidence, Kylie. All these transfers, messages. You and Reed tricked me and tried to steal our money." His voice was firm, but his eyes were full of pain. "That's not true. This is all a mistake." Kylie screamed, but the police had already handcuffed her. Reed appeared around the corner, his face stunned. "What's going on? Why are the police here?" "You're under arrest too," said another policeman, approaching Reed. Mason watched them being led away, his heart clenching with conflicting feelings. He wanted this revenge, but seeing Kylie like this was unbearable. Josh walked over to him and put his hand on his shoulder. "You did the right thing, Mason. They will pay for their betrayal," Josh said, his voice low and sympathetic. Mason nodded, but his friend's words were not comforting. He stood on the doorstep of his house, watching the police cars drive away. The house that was once full of love and joy has now become a place of pain and betrayal. The evening went on, but Mason could not find peace. He sat in the empty living room, listening to the silence that seemed deafening. His plan worked, but instead of satisfaction, he felt only emptiness. It's been a few months since Kylie and Reed were arrested. Mason understood that it was necessary to start life anew. He decided to sell the house filled with memories and move to a new city. This step seemed necessary to get rid of the ghosts of the past. The new city greeted him with coolness and silence. Mason found a small apartment in the center, overlooking the park. The apartment was modest but cozy. He liked this place because it symbolized a new beginning. On the first evening in the new apartment, Mason sat on the floor surrounded by boxes. He picked up a photo album and began flipping through the pages. The memories of happy days were painful, but he knew he had to let go of the past. One evening, while walking in the park, Mason met Lauren. She was a short brunette with warm brown eyes and a kind smile. They bumped into each other by the fountain when Mason was trying to catch his hat, blown away by the wind. "Excuse me, is that your hat?" Lauren asked, picking her up from the ground. "Yes, thank you," Mason replied, smiling. "The wind is just crazy today." They started talking, and Mason felt unexpectedly at ease in her company. Lauren turned out to be an artist who loved to walk around the park in search of inspiration. "Have you been here recently?" "What is it?" she asked as they sat on the bench. "Yes, I just moved in," Mason replied, glancing at her. "I decided to start a new life." "I understand. New beginnings are sometimes necessary," Lauren said, her voice soft and reassuring. They exchanged phone numbers and began to meet more often. Lauren became for Mason the one who helped him forget about the pain of the past. Her kindness and understanding became a source of comfort to him. One evening, sitting by the fireplace in her studio, Lauren asked, "Will you tell me about yourself, Mason? I can feel a lot of pain hiding behind your eyes." Mason looked at the fire, remembering everything that had happened. "A lot has happened. I've lost trust in people. But with you, I'm starting to believe again." Lauren held out her hand to him. "You're not alone. We all carry our wounds, but together we can heal them." Their relationship developed slowly but surely. Mason felt his heart opening up to love and trust again. Lauren supported him in everything, and together they built a new life full of joy and warmth. A new city, new people, and a new love helped Mason find himself. He started working on new projects, enjoying every day. For the first time in a long time, he felt that his life was filled with meaning and happiness again. So we have come to the end of this story. Please write your opinion in the comments. We will be interested to know it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss new, even more exciting stories. We wish you good luck.